in Springfield Business and Finance meeting. I am Ginger Velazquez, the Executive Director for Business and Finance in the Office of Business Services. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. You have all been placed on mute, so please type any questions you may have into the chat. And keep in mind that those chat questions go to everyone. We have a team that's reviewing the questions as they come in, and we will try to get to all of them. But if time constrains us, we will be sure to review any of the unanswered questions after the meeting and follow up on those as well. Also, we will again be recording our meetings and emailing each of you a link to the recording. So if you have additional questions that come up afterwards and need to review a segment of this meeting, or if you need presenter contact information, you will have all of that as well. And finally, always feel free to reach out to me and my staff whenever you have questions, comments, or ideas. Bernadette Rossmore and Stacy Balmas are here to serve you and assist in resolving issues. And you will find our contact information on the last slide of this presentation, so you can reference that at any time. So we have a very packed agenda today, and we are going to jump right into the presentations. Our first presentation will be on UBIT updates, and we will hear from Ann Larimore from UAFR, and Brenda Sutherland and Kimberly Maxwell from University Tax. So I will hand it over to Ann.
Hey, Ginger. Let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you all can see my screen.
Yep. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Sutherland, and I am from Tax Compliance and Analysis and Treasury Operations. And for short, we're known as Tax or TCA.
I'm Kimberly Maxwell. I'm also from Treasury Operations and Tax.
And I'm Ann Larimore. I'm from University Accounting and Financial Reporting, or UAFR. Okay. So today we are going to discuss the following agenda items with you. So I'm going to go over the UBIT definition. Kim's going to go over common types of UBIT activities at the university. And then Brenda's going to go over the exceptions and rates. Our goal for this presentation is that you gain a better understanding on UBIT in hopes that you can reflect on the activity occurring within your department to determine if there is any UBIT activity that we're not currently reporting on. So currently we're reporting on about 58 activities across the 3 different universities, but we believe that there may be more activities occurring within the university that are not properly being reported as UBIT or that we're unaware of. So what is UBIT? UBIT, or unrelated business income tax. So the university overall is a not-for-profit or exempt organization. So we don't have to pay taxes on, but we do have to pay taxes on any profit created from an unrelated trade or business that is regularly carried on. So the activity must be a trade or business and regularly carried on and substantially related to the university, not substantially related to the university's exempt purpose, excuse me. So it's considered a trade or business if it produces income from the sale of goods or services. So we interpret this to mean that the activity has profit motive, and we typically see these UBIT activities occurring on self-supporting funds. The activity does also have to be regularly carried on, meaning it can't be intermittent or infrequent. It has to be, if it is, then it's not considered regularly carried on. And the activity is not substantially related to the university's exempt purpose of teaching, research, public service, healthcare, or economic development. So some common types of UBIT activities that cause UBIT are on the screen here. So Kim's going to go over these in more detail, but I will touch on them briefly. So you have advertising income. This is advertisements such as print or digital advertising, sponsorships where the sponsor receives substantial unrelated benefits, rental income where additional services are provided, such as event setup or takedown, personal property rentals, and ordinary or routine testing. So I'm now going to pass it over to Kim, and she's going to talk and delve into these in more detail.
Okay, let's start with advertising income. Advertising can occur in many forms, and all advertising revenue must be recognized as unrelated business income, or UBI. That could be radio spot advertising, print advertising, or advertising on posters or digital signage. In the UBIT world, there is a difference between advertising and acknowledgement. Advertising causes UBI and mere acknowledgement does not. The main distinction in that term is that advertising includes qualitative language or an inducement to buy. That would also include price information. That's contrasted with acknowledgement. When you have an acknowledgement, that includes display of an organization's logo, any slogan that does not contain qualitative or comparative language. Acknowledgement can also include contact information, like an address, a telephone number, or a website.
And where'd that speaker come from?
Non-qualified sponsorship. In a non
Kim, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I think we'll start again with non-qualified sponsorship. Non-qualified sponsorships, the sponsor receives a substantial return benefit for their payment. So that means they're getting something back. If the fair market value of what the sponsor receives in return for their sponsorship payment is greater than 2% of what they paid for the sponsorship, then we must recognize and report UBI. Some examples of substantial return benefits that can cause UBI include any advertising or exhibit space if there's advertising at an exhibit table, or possibly free tickets to an event. Next, we'll talk about rental income. This slide is talking about rental income where additional services are provided. That's because rental of real property, or just renting space, is exempt from UBIT. But when the rental comes with certain services, that does cause UBI. An example of that is where rental of space comes along with audiovisual services, or with an event coordinator, or with any of the things you see listed here. Then we do have UBI for the rental, and we have to recognize that for tax purposes. Note that standard amenities like janitorial services, utilities, trash collection, those are standard, they don't cause UBI. And an additional consideration here is that rental must be based on a percentage of gross income or a flat amount. Personal property rentals. While the rental of space or real property only is exempt from UBIT, rental of personal property must be recognized for UBIT purposes. And you can see some common examples here of what can cause UBI. Finally, we'll talk about routine ordinary testing. This category gets a little tricky in distinguishing research from ordinary testing. If it's research, especially because we are a public research university, we do not recognize that income as UBI because it's related to our mission. But for routine testing, we can be obligated to report. An activity is considered to be ordinary or routine testing if there's a standard procedure used to perform the testing, if there are no intellectual questions posed, if the work is routine or repetitive in nature, or if there are no research activities or analyses performed by the system as part of those testing activities. Research income may be exempt from UBIT if the results are freely available to the general public, if there's significant student involvement in the research activity, if the income or money from it is coming from federal or state entities, if the research is considered fundamental, meaning it's conducted as part of our mission, or applied, meaning professional skills are involved to solve a problem. And also the research cannot be conducted in a commercial manner or a manner that is incident to industrial operations. Research activities are fact and circumstance specific, and they should be evaluated separately to determine UBI. And now Brenda Sutherland will talk about types of activities that can be excluded from UBI.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. The following are examples that will exclude the activity from being UBI. First of all, revenue generating activities with student involvement, as Kim mentioned earlier in the research example, or in the case of volunteers, if the work is substantially performed for the organization without any compensation. Next, sales that are made to other Illinois governmental agencies can also be excluded from UBI because this lessens the burden of government. Next, any internal sales to other university units would not cause UBI. Also, the sales of donated merchandise when all of the merchandise has been received by the organization as gifts or contributions for fundraising activities. And lastly, activities that are carried on primarily for the convenience of its students, staff or faculty. The convenience exception does not apply to sales to the general public, alumni, spouses, children, or any guests of employees. Okay. The current rates are indicated on the slide. The federal is currently 21%, and the Illinois has a combined rate of 9.5%. And there's actually two components for this. There's the corporate rate, which is 7%, and then there's a 2.5% personal property replacement tax. So what this means is that if your department creates a profit and it produces UBI, your department may need to budget a total of 30.5% tax expense on a going forward basis. Currently, the system is in a position where we do need to make quarterly estimated tax payments to both the federal and some state agencies. TCA and UAFR, we do work together to determine and to notify which departments are profitable and how much that department will be charged for any tax that is owed. Okay. Here's a list of some helpful resources if you have any additional need to have additional information. Section 1813 has a little bit more information about our UBIT policy. Section 22 is about self-supporting and revenue generating activities. IRS publication 598, and also the tax return is Form 990T. Here is our contact information for future reference. So please, if you have any additional questions or any concerns that if your department is generating any UBI, please feel free to contact us. And if there's no questions, I guess they're in the chat, but once again, are there any questions in the chat?
Yeah, there is one question in the chat. Do we get a tax benefit if we lose money?
No, at the moment, what we can do is we can carry forward those what we call losses. And so we will, at this point, we can utilize them for future profits if need be.
Thank you. So far, that's the only question in the chat. I don't know if others are typing.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I don't see anything coming through the chat. So if something does come up, we will catch that later. So thank you very much for that presentation. And up next, we will hear from Ann Larimore once again and Cassie Wildman from the University of Illinois Foundation with updates regarding gift fund object codes. And Ann and Cassie, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'll start out just the first few slides. I'm Cassie Wildman. I'm a manager of gift administration with the University of Illinois Foundation. So work with quite a few of you on the gift side of financial transactions.
I'm Ann Larimore once again. Sorry for overtaking the beginning of this meeting from University Accounting and Financial Reporting, but I will let Cassie start out with this presentation.
Okay, so this is about gifted objective coding, and we have this project that we've started to work on. We work really closely with Ann and her group on donor intent. We do a donor intent audit. They actually do most of the heavy lifting. They're pulling funds each year and making sure the expenses are correct. And that sort of flowed into this project that we're working on. So we're going to talk a little bit about how gift funds are coded, where to find gift fund coding, and then this project that we're working on. So when we talk about objective coding, that is a 2-character code that is assigned to 4M gift funds and then the 4J endowment income funds. So objective coding is essentially how you will know how the fund is supposed to be spent. So if it says 5Q on that, well, that's for a scholarship fund. If it's 5Z, it's for research, and the objective coding typically lines up with the NACUBO coding, although we have some different combinations that we see as well. So in TED, you can do a fund search in TED, and anybody who has business manager access has the ability to do a fund search in TED. It is under UI reporting, or it's under your business manager, and then under the designation and fund search. If you have business manager access, it is just under designation and fund search. Depends on your level of access in TED. So you can do a search for the funds in your unit, and there's a column that will appear that shows you what the coding is. And you can also do the search based on specific coding. So if you want to find codes that are specifically for faculty support or student support, you can narrow it down that way. Program codes, that's the other term that we use for the NACUBO coding. NACUBO is the National Association of College and University Business Officers, and is always really proud of me when I remember that and say that so smoothly.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So that is it's across the university systems countrywide. I don't know if it's worldwide, but definitely nationwide. It's the standard that our accounting departments use to make sure that funds are being spent in accordance with the donor intent, but it's assigned on the university side. So for anybody to have a spending account, you have that assigned to it. You can also see those in the banner string in the fund search as well. So when you're looking at your funds, the banner number should be associated with that, unless you don't have a banner fund associated for some reason. So so that basically, now what we see here is the program code is based on what the majority of expenses are expected to be. So you may have a fund that is set up for faculty support, and it'll be for their research and their teaching needs, maybe lab expenses, whatever. But what we want to make sure is that the NACUBO, the program code, represents the most expenses that the majority of the expenses on that fund. So in this example, the gift fund will be assigned 5B professorship because Professor Smith was awarded the professorship. It can be used for anything he needs, but he plans to use it for his research primarily. So in this case, the UIF gift fund will be 5B. When we code the banner fund that comes through, we'll put 5B as the objective code, but then we'll also have it assigned 191100 research program. That is something that you put on the banner code before you submit it to new accounts for us to review and send on. So that is objective and program codes.
Thank you, Cassie.
You're welcome.
So I can now talk in banner where to find this objective code and the program code. So the program code, which is assigned by us here at UAFR to represent the majority of the expenses by function type, that is found on the face of FZM Fund banner page, the main banner page for the fund. But to find the objective code, you have to drill in to the attributes page. So what you will do is under FZM Fund, and I could go into live banner if we wanted to actually see this, but you would go to related up in the upper right-hand corner, go to assign attributes, and then you get to this FATA, a banner page. And this page shows all the attributes on here, but you can see on here, it has the donor intent objective code. And so this fund is coded 5Q for scholarships. So this objective code is representing that this fund is set up for scholarships. Again, Cassie mentioned that the coding is representing the overall donor intent. So it's 5Q scholarships. However, to see the full details of the donor intent, you would need to go into TED. So, if you want to see what the the requirements are to award the scholarships, maybe a GPA requirement, or a student has to be from a specific county, you would need to go into TED. This is just a very basic donor intent coding. And then, so within section 11.10 of OBFS policy, there is a Word document. I have kind of a snippet here of it. You can see it's highlighted. This is called Purpose Codes and Definitions. So if you bring up that Word document, it has a definition for each of the objective codes and what it's supposed to represent. And so the reason we are presenting today is that we wanted to notify you all of an upcoming gift fund coding project, coding review project that we're going to do. So from FY14 through FY16, the 5C faculty fellowship objective code was not used. Instead, gift funds that were truly meant for faculty fellows or faculty scholars, they were for their research or scholarly needs or what have you. They were often set up with the 5D faculty award objective code. And as you can see on the screen here, the 5D award, faculty awards should only be used for monetary awards that are paid directly to faculty members, which they can use however they choose. And they should be based on the faculty status and processed through university payroll. So usually we see these posting to an account code like 281500 prizes and awards. So therefore, in the upcoming year, we're going to slowly start reviewing gift funds that are currently coded 5D to verify that they're coded correctly and being used according to the donor intent. So I ran a quick query a couple of weeks ago, and I saw that there are currently 435 active 4M and 4J funds that are coded with the 5D objective code attribute. So we're gonna, again, slowly begin reviewing all of these throughout the fiscal year and into upcoming fiscal years. And we may be reaching out to your unit if we have any questions on the fund and how it's being used. And so we have some resources listed on this page. We have section 11 on gift and endowment funds. We have the link to our banner program code and NACUBO functions, which talks about all the different NACUBOs and what they represent. And then we have the link to TED, the UIS database. Are there currently any questions on gift coding, where to find that coding and banner in the upcoming 5D gift fund review project? If not, I have my contact information and my fellow gift expert colleagues' contact information. Susan and Carrie, you may have worked with them. And we have the foundation's contact information for Susie and Cassie listed here.
And Anne and Cassie, I don't see any questions in the chat right now.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time then.
And thank you both.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
And we will now hear from Jason Bain with UAFR and Dana LeBreau with budget and financial analysis with an update on FISHA.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Bain. I work with University Accounting and Financial Reporting, and I'm here to present some information with you on the annual internal control evaluation process. Talk to you a little bit about FISHA. So FISHA is a mandate by the state of Illinois. It stands for the Fiscal Control and Internal Auditing Act. As a state of Illinois institution or an agency, we are required by the state of Illinois to, again, establish and maintain an effective system of internal controls. It also requires that each agency on an annual basis certify compliance with this act and report any material weaknesses to the Illinois Office of the Audit General. As a reminder, and if you're new to the organization, internal controls are a process in which all system employees participate, and they are intended to prevent errors and irregularities, identify problems, ensure corrective actions are taken. They are designed to provide reasonable assurance that management data is used and is accurate. So they are making accurate and reliable decisions based on the information provided, that the information complies with applicable laws and regulations as an acceptable level. Assets are accounted for and safeguarded from loss. Operations are effective and efficient, fulfilling their objectives and goals. Every 3-digit department within each of the universities must be accounted for through this annual review process. Typically, this is the business office within your department will compile the information for the FSHA certification. Department leadership, like deans and department heads, must review those responses and approve that certification. Then lead the department in developing a plan to address any of those identified weaknesses. We are full head into the FSHA process at this point. So in that November timeframe, again, the application is available. Departments are beginning to submit their information. They're reviewing all the different questions that are part of the process. So again, between that November and mid-February timeframe, departments, colleges, and universities within the University of Illinois system are reviewing, compiling, completing, and approving those responses to the FSHA questionnaire. In mid-February, your university provides a cumulative response to be combined with all the other universities within the system for a system-wide review. From mid-February to mid-March, Paul Ellinger, CFO, Brent Rasmus, Controller, and Julie Zamaitis, the Executive Director of University Audits, are reviewing all of those responses and assessing any identifying any control weaknesses. In April, this group will document the university-wide response, compliant actions, and recommendations in a certification letter to President Colleen. They will meet with the president to review those recommendations and seek his certification. Once that letter is certified by the president, it is signed and sent to the Office of the Auditor General's office by May 1st. Again, that required deadline. Some different resources that are available to you, again, from our website. I'll drop that into the chat box as well. From our official website, you'll see lots of different pieces of information. If you click on the FSHA certification explanation, you will see a list of all of those different statements as part of that certification. If you then click on any one of those to expand that information, you'll see a little bit more detail. Sometimes you'll see a policy question, or excuse me, a policy statement to provide more guidance, maybe a more in-depth definition or explanation of what is expected from that particular statement. Heading back to that website, we also have some additional training resources. If you're new to that particular role, we have training that is available for submitters and approvers, as well as training for other roles. If you are maybe at that college admin group manager or any of those other roles associated with FSHA. We do have one webinar remaining for this cycle. That's actually tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you are not able to attend in person, but you would like us to send you a recording, please go ahead and visit the website that I provided in the chat. You'll see the space there to register. Go ahead and register for the event. And after we are done recording tomorrow's webinar, I will send you a link to the information that's located in Box. So you'll have that information that you can use. Some tips for your roles. Dana's going to have some special requests coming up here for UIC. I spoke with Jackie Gillock, who is for UIS, your main contact, and some of the tips that we've come up with and some of the tips that, again, as reminders, again, this is a very valuable tool in that annual review process. So take the time, make sure you have the opportunity to work with your staff, work with other individuals within your department to identify and answer these questions honestly, right? This is not about catching people, getting people in trouble. It truly is about evaluating that self-evaluation process. So be candid in your responses, right? If you have weaknesses, identify them. That's what this is for. We'd rather us discover those than somebody else. Okay, and have those distributed through any of the news media, right? So again, that's our focus, is again, identifying our own opportunities to strengthen the things that we have. Again, we're working with a lot of those situations as we talk about those incompatible roles. That's what we're talking about, those internal controls we've had to put in place because there were identified weaknesses that we could not get a handle on otherwise. So again, be candid in those responses. Be thorough in your explanations, how you're going to attack those, right? Develop that plan in addressing those individual weaknesses. Ask for help, right? If you need assistance, in a couple slides, we'll have some information here available for you. The other thing that we talked about as far as tips for your roles, and as you're answering these questions, right, you have the option to select, yes, we are compliant. No, we're not, right? Which you would explain why you're not. You may be partially, you may do it some of the times, but not all of the time. Or NA. Some people inadvertently select yes a lot of times when they really should be selecting NA. So for example, do you have cash controls in your department? Yes. Do you handle cash? No. Then you don't have cash controls. So it's not an if then. It's not if I have a deficit, then I would do this. But I don't have a deficit, right? So that's not applicable for you, right? If it's not your time to do biennial inventory, like it will be next year, right? Then the answer is NA. So keep that in your mind as you're answering those questions. Really think about what they're asking. It's not an if then, it's yes, I am, or no, I'm not kind of situation. So please keep those in mind as you're, again, moving forward. Again, the annual certification is an ongoing excuse me, the audits, annual certification, and all the ongoing internal audits that are being performed by university audits, and you help improve the university's efficient and effective use of our departmental resources, again, while protecting those against misuse. It also helps us demonstrate to our grantors, our donors, and our taxpayers that we are diligent about the funds that we are entrusted to. And again, it kind of goes back to the same things that Ann's working on with the foundation, right? Are we using those gift funds the way they were intended? Are we classifying those right? So again, we're constantly working through all of this. And again, we appreciate all your efforts to help strengthen those internal controls and working with us throughout this process. I'll turn it over to Dana. She's got a couple of comments specifically for UIC.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jason, for being so thorough. Those tips look great. Before I jump in, I just wanted to reiterate the UIC dates. So the department submission and approvals are due by December 5th, which is a few weeks away. And then the memos are due by January 6th. So I know that there's some vacations planned, but you could keep those dates in mind. If also there is someone else that should fill the role, then that is currently in that position, please just let us know. Send me an email and we're happy to make those switches for you. The next few slides do pertain just to UIC. Please keep that in mind. It's just for charts to only. But any response that is a no or partial must include a full description with an action plan, a timeline, and the person responsible for ensuring that plan and timeline is going to be met. So the more information that you can supply, the better. We might come back to you with questions. So if you can add that information on the front end, that would help us out greatly. Next slide, please. Okay, for those departments that received an internal audit over the past fiscal year, there will be a flag in Fisher. You'll see it when it pops up to submit the survey. Please identify the audit item and include some verbiage as to how your corrective action and timeline, and again, a specific person responsible for that action and timeline. And keep in mind that the audit may impact the response to more than one question. So notate if you do have an audit flag, keep that in the back of your mind as you're completing all of the surveys. Next slide. And for those departments with reportable deficits, if you do have a reportable deficit, please provide a narrative. Again, I keep saying this, but the more description, the better. So again, a specific person named is responsible and then a timeline for it. And if we have any questions, we will reach out to you And if you have any questions, please contact my office. Yeah. I think I see some messages that my microphone might not have been great, so I apologize for that. If anyone has any questions, please reach out directly.
Right. And on this next slide, you can see those contact resources. Again, if you're with UIC, UIS, or even system office employees participating in this webinar today. If you have specific FISHA questions, again, you can also reach out to Mike Godsell and myself on this topic. So again, appreciate the opportunity and continue to help us strengthen our internal control processes around the University of Illinois system.
Any questions for Jason or for Dana? Okay. Jason and Dana, thank you. Already lots of good information and lots to absorb. And next up, we will hear from Stacy Balmas, who is who leads our system policy office in the Office of Business Services. And Stacy will share some business and financial policy updates.
Yeah, thank you, Ginger. Just a couple of little minor updates, not minor, but we do have a new policy that was posted recently, section 8.6.13 on postdoctoral fellowship payments. It's intended to ensure accurate reporting for the university's audited financial statements and compliance with IRS guidelines. It applies to all units who pay postdocs, and it also defines what a postdoctoral fellow and what a postdoctoral fellowship is. So I would encourage you to go take a look at that. We did just close an open comment period last Friday, I believe the 12th, on sections 15.4.1 through 0.5 on motor vehicle policies. We did not receive any comment on that, so we're going to move forward with getting that published. So look out for the updated policies. We will send, of course, a newsletter, or not a newsletter, a news center announcement out once those are published. And then we are going to be starting sometime soon. We don't have a specific date yet, but it's rolling through the process to publish a 2-week comment period on updates to section 12.5.2 on residential leases. One of the changes there being the university kind of wants to get out of the practice of being the tenant for an apartment that an employee is using. And so we're just putting some language in there for various other ways that process could be modified if possible. And if not, then what is the process for that? So we would encourage you to take a look at that when that goes out. And again, you will receive, if you're signed up for the news service, you will receive a notification when that goes out for open comment. And that's kind of all we have right now. Thank you.
And I did see one question in the chat, but Brian was already on it and responded to that. Anything else? Okay. Thank you for the update, Stacy. And we are going to take a 5-minute break. So let's see, I've got 1:40, so let's be back at 1:45. And we will continue with, start off with a Chrome River update. So 5 minutes. Okay, it looks like we had one more question in the chat, but I think Stacy has addressed that. So thank you, Stacy. Welcome back. And we are now going to hear about some Chrome River updates from Melissa Plotner from University Payables. So Melissa, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. The focus of our Chrome River update today is a little bit different than we normally do. But I've been receiving quite a few questions and comments as the word is getting around that we have officially formed a customer advisory group that's related to Chrome River. So I just wanted to share today some basic information about the team and who we've pulled together and what the purpose of that committee is. So we're really looking to obtain feedback and comments and process improvement agenda items that relate to strategic needs to the Chrome River system. We're not really evaluating university policy and procedure, but we're looking at Chrome River as the product as a whole to figure out how we can make it work better and more efficiently for users. So this group is also going to review and assist us with prioritization of issues that have been reported. And I can tell you from seeing a lot of the issues that there are a common thread of issues that continue to come up, such as reporting. And so from those discussions, we've been able to work with our partners at AITS and with Chrome River, request some different enhancements, request different products that we're working on in order to make, for example, the reporting features more comprehensive and usable for the unit. So the other thing that we hope to use this advisory committee for is to communicate with them roadmaps or information that we receive from Chrome River that then they can share with their colleagues within the units. So we officially kicked off our first group meeting at the end of May this year. And we plan to continue meeting monthly until, and hopefully, our outstanding issue list does not warrant a monthly meeting. And then we'll probably take it down to bi-monthly or quarterly. But for the next foreseeable future, we'll continue to meet monthly. So like I said, we're working on a more strategic evaluation of the system. So we're still asking that if you have a specific transaction that maybe goes astray or something that you're struggling with, you will still need to report that to us via the service desk or a TDX ticket. We do still have the dedicated Chrome River team that are answering those tickets. If you have an overall system improvement request, you can also submit those on a TDX ticket, and then we will gather those and take them to the customer advisory group meeting. So I wanted to show you quickly who has been selected as a member of this advisory group. So we put a lot of thought into pulling individuals from each university location and the system office. Most of these individuals volunteered to be on the team. So if one of these individuals happens to be within your unit, please feel free to share with them ideas that you can have, and then they can move them forward to the customer advisory committee. And Ginger, I cannot see the chat, or Bernadette, are there any questions today?
There is one question. When will the issue regarding transactions appearing on financial statements as the user being identified as the vendor be fixed?
So that is one of the top priorities that we're working on. I do not have an official date that will be fixed, other than to say it is really, really close. So I think they have identified a process that is going to work. We just have to run it through the test environment to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact anything else that we're working on.
Okay, we have another question. Are there any other priorities you can share that you are working on?
Sure, absolutely. So as I commented, one of the big items was reporting. And so through this group, we have been working with AITS and the data warehouse individuals, and the university did purchase a connector. So they call it a snowflake connector between Chrome River and the data warehouse. So the data warehouse folks are actively working on getting that data in and trying to build some reports, and they continue to solicit information from units on what reports need to be there. But the goal of that project is to have that completed around the end of April so that we have it in place before the year-end timeframe.
And Melissa, Jamie, thank you for the comment in the chat. Jamie Weber from Springfield is also on the committee. So I did not compare, Melissa, what you were presenting to the committee members, but Jamie Weber from Springfield is also on that committee. And then another question, Melissa, came in. Are there any other priorities you can share that you are working on? Do you want to talk a little bit about what's on that list?
Yeah, we can talk about a few things. There are several different line items that tie to different reporting options and reports that individuals would like to have out there. One of the big things that we've discussed the last couple meetings is a discovery that we've had with Chrome River that we could open up the business purpose field. We do get a lot of comments about that screen being locked down and people wanting to modify the business purpose after they've added line items. But something that we're discussing in the meeting is that we could unlock that field so you could update it. However, the system then does not update the individual expense line items. The business purpose carries forward. So we've had some really good discussions on how that impacts the users. Is it really a benefit? And I can tell you, I think we're leaning towards unlocking it and giving it a try. But it's those kind of things that we're trying to tackle. I don't have the list right in front of me at the moment. Ginger, was there anything else that you can recall from that list that we were focused on? I can tell you that accessibility, system accessibility for individuals that need maybe a screen reader or different accommodations to access the system has really been a #1 priority of the university. And so a lot of our resources have been targeted to getting those accessibility plans in place. So once we have those solidified, then we'll have more resources to open up to some of the other items.
And I think just a few more things off the top of my head, Melissa. One, reporting is definitely a big topic, and decision support. AITS, they are working on that as well. I don't know. I think there was an issue with was it student account payments?
Yes, there are some human subject payments that sometimes involve students that have UIN numbers. So in the current invoice module, those individuals are not showing up in the vendor list or as a vendor. So we are actively trying to work on getting them loaded. So if you do have to pay somebody with a UIN number, they will be readily accessible and also connected to the direct deposit information. So we don't have to send a paper check.
And we have 2 more questions and 2 comments. So the first question is, what about modifying the account code?
So it depends on which system you're in. If you're using expense for T-card and employee reimbursements, those are not really account codes that can be modified. There's some very complex reporting behind the scenes that, depending on the selections from the header screen, drive which account code that it posts to. But if you're using a P-card or the invoice module, we do have the drop-down list of account codes. So if you're seeing account codes that you normally use that are not in that list, just please send a ticket and we can work on getting those added for you.
Okay, the next question is, will we have the CR report ID number on the financial statement for easier reconciliation eventually? Now we are going to banner manually querying each TE number to get the CR number.
Yes, that is an item on our list that is sort of tangentially connected to some of the other reporting items. But yes, that is a goal that we could get that there for you to do reporting off of.
Okay. And then we just have a few comments. The first one is, it would also be helpful if the BP section was not a text scroll and actually opened up as a larger window.
Yes, it took me a minute to figure out what we were talking about there, but yes, we have submitted that as a request to Chrome River, and it's not something that we can modify, but I think it could be an easy enhancement on their side. But Chrome River is a product that we bought from a vendor, and so we can submit requests, but it doesn't always mean that we get priority processing ahead of other things that they're working on. So it is on their list to hopefully expand that field, so you'd be able to see everything that's entered into the business purpose.
Okay, and then before I move on to the next comment, we're going to jump back because the person who asked about changing the account code sent some clarification. Their question regarding the account codes was about changing the account code when the expense report is with the manager reviewer or the charge code reviewer.
Yes, so the same sort of explanation applies. But Chrome River right now is rolling out an enhancement to their users. Again, we have to run it through test before we release it, but literally just this week they are moving out that, so if you're reviewing an expense report and somebody picked the tile for tolls and it should have been parking, this enhancement, once it's released into our version of Chrome River, would allow one of the approvers to change that tile without it routing back to the expense owner. So that's a great question, and it is coming. Hopefully, I would guess to say maybe around January or the beginning of the new calendar year.
Okay, next question. Now that we have one location for reconciling T and P cards, is there any further discussion to eliminate one of the cards?
There is, that has been brought up, but that would be a pretty significant undertaking. And so as these projects with source to pay and all of these things are moving forward, as some of those projects wrap up, it again frees up some additional resources, but that has been something that has been requested, and it may be a possibility in the future.
Okay, another one. In the meantime, if we are paying a student with a UIN that doesn't come up, should we proceed by selecting temp vendor payment in order to process a student payment?
Yes, you can. You can select temp vendor payment. We hope to have a process and communication out in the, I knock on wood, next 2 to 3 weeks that will eliminate the need to do those as a temp vendor. But for now, if you have a need and you need to get that out quickly, yes, you can utilize the temp vendor.
Okay. just a few more. It would be, you're very popular today, Melissa. It would be helpful to be able to split dollar amounts by account code like we used to in TEM. And also, why is it necessary to add the activity code after each itemization?
I may have to take the first part of the question offline and see a specific example, because we do allow you to split the allocation. The system defaults to percentage amounts, but you can change the dollar amount. So whoever asked the question, if somebody can get me that information after, I can reach out and we can screen share and we can look at your exact situation. But as far as the account or the activity code or location code needing to be added after the fact, is the way that we load our focal strings into Chrome River. We do, the chart fund org program. If we were to add the activity and location onto that allocation string, we would have to enter that as a complete string. So we would have to add every available activity and location to every possible combination of the allocation string. And so in order not to have 3 million allocations to sort through, we made activity and location as optional. And that's why it does not carry forward.
Okay. And that person responded, not by account code. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you meant to correct your earlier comment, but then they wrote, we should only have to add the activity code once, but we have to add it 10 times if there are 10 line items.
Correct, right, because the feature in Chrome River allows you to carry that allocation string forward, but because not everybody uses activity and location, those fields are not carried forward. So you do have to enter those for each allocation that you add for each expense.
A few more. Can the finance person in the unit print a PDF of expense reports? This person currently has to go back to the report owner to send them a PDF for their records.
So it depends on what role. If you're one of the approver roles on the expense report, you are able to open that report in a PDF and you could print. But if you're reviewing that report and you haven't touched it in any sort of submittal or approval role, one thing that we have asked with the expense management dashboard is that they do add a PDF option. So right now that option is not there. You can just go into the expense dashboard, search for whatever expense report, but hopefully that is an enhancement that will be coming soon. And if that's the case for like individuals that serve in a DCM role or some sort of unit oversight role, I think that's what you're asking about. That would be a feature that would help you in that situation. So hopefully coming soon.
Okay. If someone makes an error on an invoice and submits, can that be withdrawn or canceled, or can they cancel the invoice and redo it correctly?
Yeah, so invoice, you also have the ability to recall that transaction just like you would an expense report. There are some nuances, I want to say, I guess, with invoice. If you have one that you really need to be deleted after you recall it, you can submit a ticket to the service desk and one of us can delete it out of your queue. Or once it's back in your queue, you can reuse that invoice document. You can just change all of the payee information. So up to you how you want to proceed.
And then the final comment so far, going back to account codes, if the total amount is $500, but $100 was for lab supplies and $400 was for office supplies, there's currently no way to make this distinction on Chrome River by account code.
So it depends. If you purchase that with a P card, there is an allocation tile. And when you enter the full amount of the transaction, it will then ask you to itemize that amount, and you can split it by the various account codes and the amounts that you want applied to those account codes. So check out the account allocation tile.
And so far, that's all we have in the chat.
Okay, well, I will give the screen back, but I will be here if more questions come up. But thank you. And I look forward to continue to work with everybody and make this a great product.
Thank you, Melissa, and great questions. Wonderful. So next up, we have purchasing and contract management updates from Deborah Matlock, Jill Menezes, and Janelle Graham.
Hello, I'm Deborah Matlock. I am the Executive Director for UIC Purchasing and Contract Management. And I'm going to present a process on submission of UIC board procurement items for the Board of Trustees. This is a process that has been recommended by Margaret Moser of the Vice Chancellor of Health Affairs and includes comments and feedback from Vice Chancellor Janet Parker, as well as Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services, John Coronado. And it was intended to, next slide, please. And it was intended to facilitate the review and also the quality of the procurement items that are being presented for approval by the Board of Trustees, particularly for Comptroller Ellinger when he was in an interim role and wasn't as familiar as his predecessor, Dr. Ghosh, who had in fact been the CEO of the hospital and was much more familiar with UIC. This change in process, or this newer process, was intended to be utilized by all of the purchasing offices, but right now it's only been deployed at UIC. We also want to make sure that everyone is aware of the schedule for Board of Trustees submissions, which is substantially sooner than you would expect, for example, for any items that are going in for January. The first question has been raised, which is due on this Friday. And we also want to make you aware to that point of the multiple levels of review once a procurement item is in fact initiated by the University of Illinois Hospital and Health Sciences Systems, any other college or administrative unit. Next slide. So this is the review process, these nice little boxes up at the top of this page. So once the unit in fact advises UIC purchasing of an upcoming board item, something that will exceed $1 million in spend in a single fiscal year, UIC purchasing polishes it in the format that has been requested. It then goes to the Vice Chancellor for Budget, Human Resources and Financial Administration, Janet Parker. If she has any comments, and it comes back to us here at UIC Purchasing, and then we share it with the University of Illinois System Office of the Assistant Vice President for Procurement Services, as well as the Office of the Vice President and Chief Financial Officer and Comptroller, Paul Ellinger's office. And if they have any questions, of course, it comes back to UIC Purchasing for us to respond. We then coordinate with the initiating unit on responding to those questions, and then it is submitted to the BOT office. People should be aware that there are preliminary reviews, preliminary meetings that are held, including between Comptroller Ellinger and the President and Chair of the board, so that anything that may be controversial or that has a lot of public or legislative interest can be addressed so that they can be prepared for the actual board meeting. Once items do get to the actual board meeting, it is a perfunctory approval because of all of the preparatory and preliminary meetings that were held. And so all of this very tight wording on this slide tells you that all of these approval items will be sent to these various offices. There are new documents and new formats that UIC purchasing does have, and we can provide you with. And then I was explaining to you that each BOT cycle does have a preparatory meeting even prior to the ABF&F, and that consists of Comptroller Ellinger, the Office of the Vice Chancellor of Health Affairs, Bob Barish, the Vice Chancellor for Budget, HR, and Financial Administration, Janet Parker, purchasing, which means me. If there are any procurement items, U of I Hospital and Clinics is generally represented by their CFO, Larry Appel, and then the UIC Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services, John Coronado, for any capital items. The UIC Chancellor's Office is also represented, and then we may invite representatives from, sorry, I won't be the person inviting. That is the Comptroller's discretion to invite representatives from the initiating unit. Next slide. This is the schedule for BOT item submissions. And so please note that, as I said, this Friday, in fact, if you have any items that will need to go to the January board, you should make us aware, because we are to advise by next Monday the AVP office of any items, just a list of any items that will be coming up for the January board. The next day, however, we have to in fact provide that list with a little bit more detail, including whether or not it is a new procurement, whether it is a renewal or a emergency that would be exceeding $1 million, a sole source that will be exceeding $1 million, an exemption that will be exceeding $1 million. So anything that requires that level of spend does go to the board, and all internal approvals, including by the Board of Trustees of the University of Illinois, must be achieved prior to us seeking the state purchasing officer and chief procurement officer's approval to post and make that award. So please keep that in mind when you are planning for board items, planning for awards that you will not be able to purchase if it in fact requires the approval of the board before we can in fact post the award and reach out to that vendor to make that purchase. Next slide. The next 3 slides give a lot of detailed information in terms of what the activities are required for either the Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs and his reporting units. The next slide. The Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs that are other than UI Health, other than the hospital and clinics units. And the next slide. By any other chancellor, vice chancellor, or provost reporting units. And so please be mindful of all of these various steps. And please don't shoot the messenger. Please don't shoot the messenger. Okay. Next slide. And that is not me. Step 2, after the reporting units have made sure that everyone in their chain is aware of the item that's been an issue. For the last 2 board meetings, that there were apparently some deans that weren't aware that items were being presented. And that caused some amount of gnashing of teeth and iterative processes. Then there is information that is prepared for the ABF&F preparatory meeting with the comptroller. Next slide. Step 3 is the Office of the VP, CFO, and Comptroller in advance of the actual BOT meeting does have a number of reviews and may in fact ask questions, suggest edits, request edits as well. And as you can see below, it has been suggested that all of the purchasing offices participate in and use this process. Next slide. And then this is the what happens at the actual BOT meetings, and what they basically tell you is that the initiating unit may be invited to present their items or to answer questions, but this is in fact prior to the actual board meeting. Next slide, sorry. This is what the new forms look like. We are not using what a lot of people have been familiar with, which had been the board recommendation or the board summary. What we are now doing is using the actual format of the board minutes in which procurement items are represented after the board meeting. So this is the beginning of, if you've not seen this, this is how the procurement items are presented in the minutes. Next slide. That was the very beginning of the form. And then based on whether or not it is a new purchase or a renewal or a change order, that information is collected based on what the unit is, what the specific item of supply or services that are being presented. The cost is based on an estimation, and the cost should be broken down on a per annum or per fiscal year basis, as well as if there is initial cost plus any renewal options, and then the vendor's name and where they're located. When we provide you these forms, the forms in fact have a number of comments and helpful hints in terms of how to complete them to in fact provide them to us in the purchasing office. And then there would be a description of the purchase that we will put quite a bit of meat around. This is just kind of the top level introduction to whatever the specific items are. Next slide. As you can see, as the first slide said, a new purchase, this is how we would caption it for a change order. And next slide. And or if it was a renewal, we would define what had been the initial period as well as what the renewal options are and what are being exercised at this time. Next slide. This for every item, we will insert what the dollar amount is, the value for that particular item. And then the cumulative value is what would appear in the actual board minutes for each of the universities for which board items were presented. Next slide. We have introduced a procurement briefing document. This is intended to give additional data that doesn't appear in the actual form of the reports that will be included in the minutes, but it is to anticipate questions that may be asked by anybody who is involved in the review process, in the review cycle, as well as the comptroller. Next slide. That's the first half of the briefing document. The second half does have specific captions for additional information. Of particular note should be the BEP statement and background information. Let me take this as an opportunity to remind everyone that the BEP aspirational goal was increased from 20% to 30% effective 1/1/22. And so that is an area of interest in terms of the university's commitment to diversity as to whether or not there has been a BEP goal determined, and that we have actively encouraged our various vendors, particularly in the competitive solicitation space. And there's also now a requirement in the procurement code for emergency procurements to seek out BEP certified vendors to perform those services. And that would all be captioned here. Next slide. And again, UIC Purchasing and Contract Management has all of the documents, including heavily commented upon with helpful hints and tips for how you can complete the documents. If you have any items that you believe based on your estimated cost will in fact require board approval, please get them to us as soon as possible. And that is our main number. You can also use our email address, which is uicpurchasing@uillinois.edu. I'm going to transition. I don't see any questions.
Deborah,
Yes.
If
Yeah.
I could just clarify, you mentioned that this process would be deployed for the other universities, and I think Jill is on the line.
The other, I can say that the other universities have rejected this. They think it's too
Okay,
convoluted.
so since we have Springfield
Yeah, sorry.
on the line, no, I just wanted to check in with Jill and see if there is any change for Springfield, but it sounds like there is not. I think Jill is on the line.
Can you repeat that? A phone call came through right as you were offering up
Sure.
that question.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure, Jill, that at this time there is not a change for Springfield units related to this topic.
No, there's not a change. We don't really have too much that goes to the board, and so everything just comes through me. I apologize.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for interrupting, Deborah.
No. Thank
Good.
you. I just wanted to be mindful of the time. It is a lot of information, and I do recognize that. And so my attempting to get through it as quickly as possible does not minimize the fact of how many iterations we went through for the board items that are coming up tomorrow at the board meeting tomorrow here in Chicago. And so please, when you get the information resulting from this meeting, please do take a look at it. If you are a person who is processing items for the board, please be mindful of all of these various requirements. And as I said, of the schedule and how many people are now reviewing board items. Okay. And now I'm going to make a transition to Janelle Graham, who is my Senior Assistant Director for Procurement Exceptions and Exemptions. And she's going to give a reminder, an overview of exceptions and exemptions to the competitive purchases under the Illinois Procurement Code because of some specific attention that has been paid to UIC recently for the number of emergencies that we are processing. Take it away, Janelle.
Hello, I am Janelle Graham, Assistant Director for Exemptions, for Exceptions and Exemptions at UIC Purchasing. I like to cover the exceptions and exemptions to the competitive purchase. Next slide, please. We like to talk about the review of the exceptions to the competitive procurement process, which that includes small purchases, professional and artistic services, goods or professional and artistic services under $100,000, sole source, and emergency purchases. We're going to review the exemptions and also review the Commission on Equity and Inclusion and the impact it is having on our exemption process. Next slide, please. I won't go through every single thing. I see a lot of you all that are on the call are aware of the small purchases and professional and artistic services. The small purchase that includes supplies and services and construction under $100,000 does not have to be competitively solicited. Professional services as indicated under section 35-35 and less than $100,000 and non-renewable, 1 year or less in duration. Professional services include law, accounting, medicine, dentistry, clinical psychology, and custom produced art. But our focus here, we're going to really be focusing on making emphasis, emphasis on the exemptions and emergencies and why it has come to the attention of the CPO. Next slide, please. So procurements that are exempt from the competitive process include sole source, sole economically feasible source, and a single source. Next slide, we would discuss the sole source justification form. And I see many of you all on this call that I have worked with. This is the sole source justification form. I won't go through each item on here. It is available, and I normally get the form from the CPO website so that we just keep an updated version. Next slide. I think the next 2 slides is the justification form. Yes, emergency purchases, great. Well, emergency purchases, as under in the code, section 20-30, and for public health or safety repairs to prevent loss or damage to university property, collection of substantial state revenues, or ensure integrity of state records. Emergencies are initially for 90 days. They can be extended beyond the 90 days, but that must be determined by the CPO, and we have to have a hearing. And that the hearing, the SPO and the CPO are involved in that process as well. And the CPO makes a final determination, and it is posted. The next slide will include the emergency purchase statement form. Next slide. Next slide. Now, the good stuff. The emergency awards that have been issued and why, as Executive Director mentioned earlier, has come to, it's a concern for the CPO. And if you look at the awards that we have made for emergency purchases from FY20 to we are now like a third into FY23. In FY20, we all are aware that we had the pandemic. So the emergencies were there. And I'm aware that the CPO is aware that we declared the emergencies in FY20. Of course, as we moved along, we had FY21, where we were trying to kind of manage and stabilize during the pandemic. And then, of course, in FY22, we moved forward with additional emergencies. The concern that the CPO and, of course, purchasing is having is that if you just look from, just say FY21 to FY23 and where we are, FY23, we are already halfway through FY20, where FY20 procurements throughout for the whole fiscal year. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. And if you have any questions, no problem, just please put it in the chat.
But I just want to add that as Janelle said, the state purchasing officer and the chief procurement officer for higher ed do require, they have to in fact approve the postings, and so they are aware certainly of what we are doing. These are also auditable items, and so when they start to see that we are ramping up at this rate in FY23, we process, Janelle, you can correct me if I misstate this, we process more emergencies than any other university.
Yes, we do. In fact, more than multiple universities. So this is what has brought it to the attention of the CPO, because we have an SPO here at here for UIC, and he raised the concern of the emergencies that we are declaring. Now, when we declare these emergencies, they are actually emergencies. but we do not want to be perceived as we are declaring emergencies for poor planning. And I know that sometimes, and it happens across campus and the hospital as well, sometimes we just miss the mark and we still need the procurement and we need it right away, regardless. So therefore, we declare an emergency, and many of you all who work with me know that we declare the emergency and the executive director does the final sign off for it, for declaring it, but we must notify the SPO because it must be published as well. Next
And
slide.
Janelle,
Yes.
sorry, Janelle, just a quick note that we have about 1 minute and we have
Okay.
to move on to procurement diversity. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just about done as well. Thank you. The exemptions, I don't want to go into detail since we don't have the time, but I just wanted to mention the additional oversight that has become effective on July 12th, 2022. And that's the Commission on Equity and Inclusion. Commission on Equity and Inclusion now.
Next slide.
Next slide, I'm sorry. Exemption form. The exemption form, many of you all are familiar with, but my concern is the additional oversight that we have now with the CEI now is an additional 14 days, and it does not include the day that we publish it. The effective day is the following day, and the end of the 14-day is when we can issue the procurement, which will be the 15th day, but we have to have it published for 14 days. And this has impacted how we procure goods and services. Normally in the past, we have, with an exemption, turned it around in 24 to 48 hours right away. That no longer exists with the additional oversight with the CEI. So to continue to provide excellent customer service, we are encouraging our end users to please submit in a timely fashion. And I know some of you have in the past, and we were able to turn it around in 24 to 48 hours. That no longer is the case with the additional oversight from the CEI. And we do believe in purchasing that by us having this additional oversight has increased our emergency procurements from in the past. And we really would like for our end users, our customers, to be aware of the additional oversight, and we will continue to try to provide excellent customer service with the additional oversight being included as well. Next slide. Again, this is where we talked about the 14-day and their right to review, and we must include this when we are procuring for exemptions now. Emergency purchases cannot be an option to planning for CEI review. Next slide, meaning that we cannot just declare an emergency because we are poor planning. Any questions or concerns? Thank you.
So we thank you for this opportunity to present as always. And again, if anyone has any questions about purchasing or contracts matters, please do reach out to Team UIC, purchasing and contract management.
Deborah, Rodney did have a quick question. What exactly is the CEI looking for with the additional oversight, and why is the additional time needed? And we have about we're over time right now, but I
can answer very quickly. The CEI per statute is charged with reviewing any procurements or contracts or procurements, awards, contracts, anything. They are charged with looking at them for purposes of diversity and inclusion. However, the questions that they have posed to us, because they have not waived their review, and the questions that they started posing to us in July do not reflect diversity and inclusion. So we don't know is the answer, Rodney. We don't know. We're hoping that administrative rules will be promulgated that will better define and hone in on what their review is about. But the additional time that's needed is because by statute, they get the 14-day right of review by statute, by law.
And no waivers currently are being issued. No waivers are currently being issued. So we have to wait the 14 days, and we strongly encourage our end users to please. And if you have something coming down the pipe and you say, Janelle, I need the 14 days, you have to let us know in advance, and we make every effort to meet your needs. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah and Janelle and Jill. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but thank you for confirming some things for Springfield as well. And now we will turn our attention to Shauna Claiborne from the Office of Procurement Diversity, who will introduce us to SJB Promotions.
Good afternoon. Hi, Ginger. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to, if you can advance the slides, that would be great. I will take some pressure off me. I've been advancing slides all day. So yes, good afternoon. Just a few updates, what our department has been working on, or what have we been doing. So we had a few supply diversity initiative updates. Today we had an Amazon Doing Business with Amazon the University webinar, which was geared towards BEP vendors who want to participate in their small business diversity business program. And it was also a chance for university staff to learn a little bit how to search for the BEP sellers and kind of what is needed for those vendors to be successful. I just want to remind everyone about some of our strategic contracts or IPEC contracts you should take advantage of. The peer group company is now, as you probably already know, there is a catalog in iBuy. Please check out their catalog for all your IT hardware and software products, and our promotional product contract with IPEC. There are 7 BEP firms on this award. There is a couple of vendors do have catalogs, so please check out those catalogs in iBuy as well. If there's not, please reach out to those vendors to see what products and services that they offer. And today, that's why we do have one of the firms from the contract to tell you a little bit more about her services and her products. Next slide. So the vendor showcase is with SJB Promotions. Jill Douglas is here today. And Jill Douglas actually is part of one of our participants in the inaugural Diverse Supplier Development Program, which launched end of June and really just kicked off the past 3 months. They've had I believe three workshops, and Jill was selected to participate in the program because she has a wonderful company that she is working on growing, and she really wants to connect with even the UIC campus and the University of Illinois Springfield campus. So I'm going to bring her on today. I believe you're already on, right, Jill? And I will turn it over to you. Please take it away.
Hey everyone, happy afternoon. Thank you so much, Shauna. I've had the pleasure of knowing Shauna for a few years now. We are 22 years in the industry, at least I am. I'm the owner of SJB. I bought the company in 2009 and we've been certified since 2012. I am located right in the middle of Illinois. So if you think of Bloomington, Springfield, and Peoria, I'm like right in the middle of that triangle. So Central Illinois is our location. Shauna asked me to identify our clients. Certainly University of Illinois is one of them. Our others include Eastern, Illinois State. We do have a specific contract with Edwardsville, SIU Edwardsville. We work with Carbondale and WIU. Next slide, please. Promotional products, if you don't know what that is, it's A to Z. From soup to nuts, we do awards to zipper pulls, writing instruments, drinkware, bags, any kind of decorated apparel. Those products can be decorated in a variety of ways. Most of those products can be found on our website. Of course, we are not, as Shauna indicated, we're not in the iBuy system. We're a little on the small side to do that for you. But if you reach out directly to me, I'm going to send you my email and my website in the chat here in just a few minutes. Whenever possible, we do use the most close suppliers to Illinois that we can. So that would be utilizing Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Kentucky. That will save you on shipping costs, especially, and sometimes production time. We are budget friendly. I do understand that we're working within a lot of qualifications like pricing, quality, quantity to match your needs. So I always will keep that in mind when searching for you. Through the contract, through the IPEC contract that Shauna was explaining, we do offer you a 10% discount off your promotional product order from the website. And then that discount's just applied over to the order acknowledgement when you order from SJB. We are a certified and licensed carrier of the University of Illinois official logos. If that logo is not appropriate for you, then all we need is a .eps or a Adobe Illustrator file to work those into the promotional product imprint area. Whenever we're doing promotional products for you, please just don't forget, my little tip is allow at least 3 business days for our CLC licensing approval for your promotional products. Next slide, please. So my forecasting tips for you, we all know where we're at with especially inflation and gas prices, and those are some of the things I do want to talk about with you today. This year, I will attend several different trade shows. I usually attend about 2. This year, I actually attended 3. Those trade shows help me find the newest products, newest trends, technologies, capabilities of our suppliers. So if you want to know about those things, send me an email. I can easily send you a Zoom meeting link where we can see what those new products are so you can help with your event planner schedule for the new year. I do know that right now supply chains are affecting every single one of you in your ordering process. And as a promotional product provider, distributor, I think what we can do is, my tip is to say, look, there are some supply chain issues, but pick out your first, second, and third choice of your item. And even within that first category, some items can be found at multiple suppliers. So that allows you additional options. It may not always be at the same price point, but at least we can find sometimes the same pen at multiple locations. As I said, gas, inflation are really driving the current cost of goods. We're up about 8% in just this year, this last quarter. The way to get around that is ask for our specials. Closeouts is another option. And then, of course, your IPEC discount, which is 10%. Production times in your event calendar, I'm suggesting that you move from a normal 5 business day production time to almost a 10 to 20 day production time, because that's what we're seeing from our suppliers. We see that they are needing more time to produce products. And then also on top of that, we're seeing additional shipping time needed for the delivery of your product from the supplier to your very location. Again, the tip is create that event calendar for the year. Try to order at least 1 month earlier to avoid a missed deadline. Our quotes will state the number of production days you will need, and then we will also hold your quote for the pricing for 30 days under that IPEC contract. Some top picks that I've seen just in the third quarter have been in the Midwest, have been #1 shirts, Number 2 is drinkware. Number 3 is bags. And the 4th most popular item is writing instruments. Again, my tip is order early, have your vector artwork ready. In the slide, I've shown you 2 formats that are really great for promotional products. You need a .eps or a .ai file, which are vector formats. Always ask for your proof from your distributor, and always ask for that tracking information so you can see when it actually arrives to campus and you can find it from there. Again, get to know your promotional provider like us. Again, we're just in the middle of Illinois. We're trying to make your order easy, simplistic, and I have a great promotional product provider list of suppliers. So give us a try. I'm so happy to help you. Next slide, please. Here is my information. I'm going to send this again through the chat. If you have questions, please just give me a call, email. I'm happy to take your questions now if you have any.
I don't see any questions in the chat. So thank you. Shauna, I'm sorry, did you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you for allowing us some time to share.
Thank you so much, Shauna and Jill. And I would again just like to quickly thank all of our presenters today. There was a wealth of information presented, and also a thank you to all of the participants for coming today. We appreciate your time and hope that you found the information useful. As a reminder, you will receive a link to the recorded presentation. And again, our contact information is being presented here now. Bernadette is sharing that, but you will have it as well when she emails everything to you. So we will, believe it or not, see you all in January of 2023. So have a safe holiday season and a happy new year. And thanks again, and everyone have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.